He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
I hope you're having a great day, and welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. Have something I want to share with you from my friend Stacy Waldrop this morning. It's from Josh Shipp, and it really is good. So think with me as I read this one. You either get bitter or you get better. It's that simple. You either take what has been dealt you and allow it to make you a better person, or you allow it to tear you down. The choice does not belong to fate. It belongs to you. I love that. I love actually finding these gems and sharing them with you, because I hope that you're inspired by them the way that I'm inspired by them. Coast Vue is about celebrating coastal Mississippi, but I hope that you find that it's also about inspiration, that you're able to get a tidbit here and there that would make your day better and make you think a little bit harder about how to be the best version of yourself. We're going to tackle some tough issues along the way, but as a general rule, we're going to celebrate coastal Mississippi. And we hope that for our listeners and people who watch on SuperTalk TV or social media or on YouTube, that you'll listen to these conversations, you'll find some inspiration in them, and then you'll work harder to find what your role can be, that you can be one of the 1,000 points of light in coastal Mississippi. Man, it takes so many of us working together to build a great region. So thank you for being there, and hope again that you're inspired by it. Now let's turn the page and move over to my friend Ashley Edwards. He's the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. He's also the chairman of an advisory committee around the BP Coastal Restoration Funds. We'll talk a little bit about that today. But anyway, Ashley, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Feel like $1 million, Ricky. I tell you, with all the advances we're making against the pandemic and the numbers coming down, just excited about the fact that we may have a more normal summer than we would have imagined. So really feeling good about it.
It's really cool. I had Fofo Gillich on last week, and we talked about, you can just feel it. I'm seeing this in all my guests. You're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not like, is that the light at the end of the tunnel? Yeah, maybe it's the light at the end. No, it's bright. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. Numbers are coming down. The number of people getting vaccinated is going up rapidly. I think, I never was too critical of our state's rollout of the vaccine program, because I felt like that. It's like so many things when you're doing it for the first time. When you first get started, it's going to be a little bit clumsy. But I think this one actually played to the governor's strengths. He's a numbers guy. He likes statistics. And eventually, within a matter of weeks, I think they got their arms around it and started saying, okay, what gets measured gets done. We're going to get this. We're going to involve the hospital, something they didn't do in a big way in the beginning. And, this thing sort of started tracking forward pretty well. I think Mississippi's stacks up well with other states. The number of vaccine, if you take the total inventory and you look at, okay, where we are at this moment in terms of shots and arms, we're well into the 70% range, which is really good. It means we're moving fast to get the shots in people's arms. We keep bringing that age down, which is a really good thing. And you see it in people when you walk around and you feel life coming back to coastal Mississippi, don't you?
Absolutely. And I'm so happy for frontline workers out there, many of whom have had to continue right on through the pandemic. You think about the pressure that's been placed on them to have to stay healthy for their families, but to also have to show up and go to work. And the fact that they're going to be in a better situation, more customers coming in, our economic situation will almost certainly continue to improve. And I think it has a long way to go. I think we're going to see a really bold summer here. I think we'll see a lot of visitation on the coast. I think this is going to be a real good summer for us.
Pent up demand. And, we'll spend some time in the future continuing the conversation that you and I have had for a long time. And that is that all these trends that were in place before the pandemic, that got sped up by the pandemic, And just as here we are over 15 years later after Katrina, still trying to understand, how did it change this region in so many different ways? 15 years from now, we're going to be looking back on this pandemic and saying, gosh, some of this stuff, I mean, we're going to have the clear line of sight of, have history to look back at. But I think we're going to look back and say, man, it changed the face of the earth. I mean, in so many incredible ways. I mean, you feel the same way, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, I think a lot of folks really undervalue the extent that the pandemic is going to accelerate a lot of changes. We were already in a state of economic change in the United States and really across the world. This is only going to speed it up. And I think you're absolutely right. I think a generation from now, the business school history books are going to be teaching about the way that the pandemic fundamentally changed the world economy. I think it's, we've already seen some of it, frankly, but I don't think we've seen nearly the full extent that we're going to see. So I do think that this is going to be a big time. I mean, when you think about it from the standpoint of local businesses, certainly they've had to undergo a tremendous amount of changes. But look at what's happened in terms of financial policy, tax policy. Yesterday we had the new $1.9 trillion bailout package passed. I mean, I think that you're going to see the federal government begin to invest in reshoring companies, pharmaceutical companies that are making the input products for things that have national security value. The amount of investment that I think you're going to see as a result of this is going to be historic. And so, positioning ourselves to be very competitive in that new environment is literally the most important thing that we can be doing right now.
Well, we're going to talk more about the BP money in the second segment, so we'll come back to that in just a second. But when you woke up this morning, what are the kinds of things you were thinking about as it related to the Business Council's work?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I actually woke up this morning doing a little bit of reading about the sort of the pandemic changes, and there were some really good articles that have come out. I do a lot of market watching. I'm kind of a hobbyist investor. I don't think it'd be fair to call me a day trader, because I'm more of a buy and hold kind of a stock guy. But I really like to read the business news. I like to read the economic news. And, there was this analysis of how disruptive technologies are coinciding with disruptive development. And it's changing places. And the interesting thing about it is, the Austin, Texas and the Nashville, Tennessees of the world, they were sort of on the front end of this 15 years ago, but they're not really seeing it right now. Where it's starting to happen is in all of these towns and cities across the United States that had lagged behind a little bit. And what you're seeing now is tech companies are making huge expansions. They're going into markets where the cost of living, the cost of labor is far less. I think that within 10 years, we're going to see that the Silicon Valley in California is going to be relatively empty compared to all of the little Silicon city centers that we're going to see around the United States. And so there's clearly a change happening here, and it surrounds these sort of disruptive technologies. But on the same note, they are looking to try to create a new environment in sort of new economic centers. And I just, to me, that is one of the most important conversations that's taking place right now. And as it relates to our work at the Business Council, that's exactly the type of thing that we were formed to do. We're a civil society organization that was really formed to make sure that we're pushing the coast forward to be positioned well for these types of changes that are occurring.
And you had done some strategic work. And what's interesting about it, in that strategic work that you guys had done, looking at, where can coastal Mississippi go for many years to come, the whole notion of the new economy was part of that. The creative class, remote work was part of that. But if you take that now within the context of the pandemic and look at it, the opportunities are unbelievable. And you talk about, this disbursement of companies and maybe new centers emerging and whatever. But I think probably the biggest center that's going to emerge is not even a center at all. It's the amount of disbursement of remote workers that's going to occur. Look, I have a lot of friends in New York. My son works in New York. And I've mentioned it before on the air, that Price Waterhouse is probably going to go to some kind of permanent remote work scenario. That's going to change the way they view corporate headquarters and all these big, important, centers that they have for their operations across the country. Every company's having that conversation right now. I mean, I would not want to be in the commercial real estate business in New York City now, or in any major city for that matter. That's the same point about Silicon Valley. The cost of doing business in Silicon Valley, that's where my company was once located. Man, I mean, it's expensive to do business there, dude. Why don't we do this? We're going to continue that conversation because that really does, I think it ties in extraordinarily well to the conversation we're having about the BP money and where we go from here. So we'll have that part of the conversation when we come back. This is Ashley Edwards from the Gulf Coast Business Council, and we'll see you after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm. If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, casinoradio1063.com.
This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Ashley Edwards with us. He's the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. He's also the chairman of the advisory, with emphasis on advisory committee that is scoring projects for the BP restoration funds. And what we're going to do, Ashley, now, and I talked to Ashley a little bit before the show started, and this sort of 10-minute period, we're going to give people a quick review. So it's kind of going to be your primer on what this process is all about, and some concerns I might have about kind of where we are at this point in the process. So, Ashley, tell about your committee and how it ties into the legislature.
Let me just start by making a couple of comments about, we hear the term BP money all the time. And I think it's important for your listeners to kind of understand what we're talking about. There are lots of different, quote unquote, BP monies flowing around the coast right now. But what we're talking about really specifically are the BP economic damage settlement funds. There are essentially two different ways that BP money arrives on the coast. One is through the Restore Act, and that was federal legislation that took the criminal and the civil penalties from BP and Transocean as a result of the oil spill. Those penalties were paid to the federal government. Congress created legislation. The Department of Treasury oversees it. Those flow back into projects. And so a lot of projects people hear about, they say, well, is that one of the projects that you guys recommended? That all goes through a different process. It goes through the State Department of Environmental Quality. What we're talking about here was a settlement that was made directly between BP and the state of Mississippi. No federal government involvement at all. And what you had essentially was $600 million that came to the state of Mississippi as a result of the economic damages that occurred during the summer of the oil spill and in the time after that. And this was BP's way of saying, okay, we realize that, we're potentially liable here for quite a bit. Rather than going and fighting this out in court, we're going to make a lump sum settlement offer. And so those dollars are essentially the most valuable dollars we have because they literally can be used on anything. The legislature ultimately has the oversight of those dollars. They hold the power of the purse strings, and so they control the state budget. Those monies go straight into the state budget. And a decision was made back in 2018 by the legislature to spend 75% of the total funding in the 6 coastal counties of Mississippi. So essentially making sure the money goes back to the coast where the damage occurred. So now we're in a process by which each year people apply to the Mississippi Development Authority, ultimately to be forwarded to the state legislature, to say, we've got an idea or we've got a development. We'd like to have some of those funds come in to help us offset the cost of this development. And we've seen applications come from cities that have, things that they want to do with city funds. We've seen things come from private sector developers. We've seen things come in from nonprofits. And so what we do every year is we essentially look at all of these applications that come in, and we try to judge which ones will have the most transformational impact. And that means a lot of things. One of the things it means is, which one has a lot of additional financial leverage behind it. If at the end of the day, someone's saying, look, we need a 20% subsidy to put something really grand in place, but we're going to finance and bring 80% of the dollars from the private sector in here, dollars that would not be here otherwise. Well, that's something that, we want to pay attention to, and we obviously want to take a second look at. The other thing that we're looking for is, sort of those disruptive or transformational type developments, the things that, allow us to leverage other type of investment that comes in. As I tell people all the time, when you look at public finance, there's one of two ways you can do things. If you've got a road that needs to be repaved in front of your house, the city can either take money directly out of the general fund, they can go repave that road, or they can figure out a way to make sure that they're developing the land along that road to its highest and best use so that the tax dollars that are generated can repave that road over and over and over for a generation. And what we're talking about is how do we generate the tax dollars in coastal Mississippi over a generation that can really pay for those expenses rather than using these monies that we're talking about on one-time expenses such that we don't really see any ongoing benefit or any return on investment over the long term. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish from our advisory board's perspective. And as you said, we're only advisory. We're essentially making observations about the projects. We're advising the legislature, say, here's what we think will have the greatest economic impact, but ultimately they get the final say in the process.
And then what they get to, so you have these projects that come through your committee, but then there are projects that don't come through your committee. that could be also sort of, you can game the system or, lobby legislators or political leaders to try to get your project funded. So at the end of the day, hang on, we got to stop. Mary will be with you in just a second, but we had a terrible echo. You heard that, Kyle?
Yeah, I muted hers.
Okay, she's muted now. Okay, so where would be a good place to start that?
I have no idea. Probably from when you first started talking.
Hang on a second. Let me think about it for a minute. Let me think for a minute. Okay, I'll start with where you have the projects that went through the committee and the projects that went around the committee. Okay, that's where I'm going to start.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
So what? Let me add a little bit to this, Ashley. So you have the projects that come through your committee that are scored, but then you have projects that can go around your committee, and people can sort of game the system or lobby the legislature separately to have those funded. And let me say just a couple more things, and just to add a little bit of meat to what you said, and that is that if you think about the disasters that have occurred in coastal Mississippi over a number of years, what it did is it revealed about us that we have some vulnerabilities. And one of the things that we want to have, that certainly the BP oil spill did this, is we want to become economically resilient. We want our community to become more prosperous. You think about it, every community would want that. But every community can't make every project work. And what the BP money provided for us is a way to actually make projects work that may not have worked before. So what we're seeing over the last couple of years, the number of game-changing projects coming to the table starting to increase. And they're starting to really, really, fine-tune the financials to say, here's the role the state can play through the BP monies that could make this a viable project. It might be just to make it economically viable to do it, or maybe it's driving the rent costs down so that the people who are part of the new economy can actually afford to live there, or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to gyrate this. But at the end of the day, and I think that the legislation, the way that it was worded, sort of suggested this, that the goal was to do transformational type projects. In the first round, that's not what happened. I mean, there was, y'all made your recommendations. They took some of them, they funded some of them, and partially they did a lot of one-time expense kind of things that were, you're just throwing the money around coastal Mississippi. And I'm not saying those projects didn't need to get done, but those are not the kind of projects that are going to stand the test of time. And this particular round, I'm already beginning to hear from people who have projects that they had to work through your committee. They get scored. Some of those that were approved, not approved, but it's got good scoring and recommendations from your committee. Then they're having to go through this laborious process to go to Jackson and then lobby all over again to try to, to me, if the goal is transformation, then the process is not working very well. And I hope, Ashley, that in the future, 10 years from now, we look back on this, that we didn't squander the money. And when I say squander the money, I'm saying spend the money in a way that didn't leave a legacy for our kids and our kids' kids. And one last thing, Ben Brown, who's worked with Andres Duane, done projects all over the world, he says that developers would covet the opportunity to have something like a BP fund there that could help make projects work. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make the numbers work for projects we otherwise would not be able to get. And the biggest issue, as I see it today, is we have not been able to align all of our elected leaders around this goal. The goal is not the same. And I don't know what you want to say about that, but that's just kind of my observation.
Well, I think your observations are very fair. And I think you're absolutely right about that, Ricky. And one of the things that I would tell your listeners in no uncertain terms, when we recommend a project, we are not recommending projects that would happen anyway. This is not a situation where we're trying to subsidize something that just wants to figure out a way to make a little more profit. What we're talking about here are putting monies toward things that would not happen if it weren't for the opportunity to have some public funding, whether it's to help build infrastructure, other costs associated, because development is very hard, especially in our market. If you're going to Austin and you're developing mixed use housing and you're going to sell, 1,000 square foot loft units for $700,000 a piece, you're in the money there. You don't need any help to do that whatsoever. But that's not our market right now. And so what we're talking about here is making sure that we're not squandering that money on things that just constitute expenses that could be paid for with other funds or sometimes even with other grant opportunities. And instead centering that money squarely on those things that will not happen, those investments that will not happen unless we figure out a way to help incentivize that development forward.
Well, actually, I've said this before. This is hard work. And and I've said it takes time, and it takes patience, it takes money, it takes engaged developers, it takes architects who get it. This is not easy. And what we're trying to do is incent private developers to think big, to bring visions that will help us build things like mixed use. We're going to have Stuart Speed on tomorrow, finally discuss the projects that's been proposed for Gulfport. I'm really looking forward to that conversation because this is a case where there's some BP money that could potentially help make that project a reality. But there's so many more like that one. But what we'll do, we'll come back in a couple of weeks and we'll see how the process is going, and we'll keep the conversation going, and hopefully people will get on board with understanding that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity and we need to take it. So thank you for taking this time, buddy.
Thank you, Ricky. Lots of good work lately. Always enjoy your show. So thanks so much.
You bet, buddy. We'll see you later. And when we come back, we have Mary Graham from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
Hey, South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. We got to talk Jimmy Buffett.
One day at breakfast, he says, I started a new song. He says, about a night and a day in Key West, I played a bar and I got drunk, and coming home, I stepped out of my flip-flop, and I just kept going. I stepped on a beer can. And the next morning, I'm up, and I'm hungover, and I'm trying to make a margarita. I got some shrimp boiling. I can't find the salt. I said, Jimmy, I kind of like that. And he said, yeah, I think I'll call it Margaritaville.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on your local SuperTalk Mississippi station, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, CasinoRadio1063.com.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to good things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Well, back to Coast View. I really enjoyed my conversation with Ashley Edwards. He's a phenomenal leader here in coastal Mississippi, and the work that the Business Council is doing strategically to help understand what is the vision of coastal Mississippi going forward. How do we make sure that we have a resilient and prosperous economy going forward? It's so important. And the conversation around the BP money could not be more important at this moment in time. And I'll add to that as well that the conversation I'm going to have tomorrow with Stuart Speed, his father, incidentally, was Leland Speed, former director of the MDA, incredibly successful man. I had an opportunity to work closely with him after Katrina. And the fact that we have someone of his caliber and his company's caliber involved in a potential project here in coastal Mississippi is very significant. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation. So now let's turn the page and move over to my friend, Mary Graham, the president of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, my dear friend. And it's great to see you again. It's been a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Ricky. Thanks for having me on the show today.
So, you know what? It's interesting. It's National Women's History Month, and a lot of celebrations around that. We can talk about that. I was so thrilled to see the Immersive Media Performing Arts Center just unveiled. Wow. And we'll come back to that too.
Okay.
But one of the things I did this morning in preparing for this conversation is I went back. It's been about a year ago, actually, since you and I had our first Coast View session together, an hour-long look at where you came from and your commitment to the college, et cetera. And we've visited many times since then. But I wanted to share with you what I said back then, because it still applies today. And it's a really sort of great lead in to the conversation about the Performing Arts Center. So here's what I said back then, that you're a phenomenal leader. And I said of our cherished community college, because Gulf Coast Community College is one of the most significant and celebrated community colleges in the United States, certainly in Mississippi, but certainly also in the United States. You've received these accolades. You've received grants in the tens of millions of dollars. You've strengthened, critical partnerships in the business and industry community. You continue to have strong strategic partners in the community. You've expanded the footprint of the college to include new campuses, new programs, and opportunities for students in state-of-the-art buildings, which we're going to come to in just a second. Your whole existence as a leader has been raising the bar of quality so that we can provide better educations. Now, look, it may be that some of these students are going to go back to four-year university, or maybe some are going to go through the incredible nursing program that you have, or in the number of workforce development programs that you have, because you don't necessarily have to have a four-year degree to be unbelievably successful in your life. And that's one of the things that you preached all along. But one of the things I like about what you have done is that you've brought great leadership. You have committed employees, excellent teachers, highly motivated students, and it really takes a community to run Gulf Coast Community College. Now, I could go on and on, but this is what I said back a year ago, and it still applies today. And I know I see you blushing, but the reality is your leadership has been phenomenally important to this community. And unveiling the Media Performing Arts Center had to have been an incredibly proud moment for you.
It absolutely was. It's one of the most beautiful buildings we've built at Gulf Coast Community College. We're so proud of it. And Ricky, it's going to offer such a great opportunity for our community. And I can talk on and on about that if you're ready to do that.
Yeah, please do. Because first of all, talk about what the goal was and describe it. And we'll lay, for the Facebook audience, we'll lay some photos in to give people a sense of seeing the incredibly well architectured building. But talk about it.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, speaking of the architecture, Ely Guild-Hardy was our architect on this beautiful building. And Steve Stolcich, the primary architect, who is probably one of the most creative people you could ever meet, he had some really big ideas. What we always do, Ricky, when we decide that we want to build a state-of-the-art facility is we travel to several different states to look at premier facilities, and we try to garner as many good ideas as we can so that as we come back, we put all these ideas together, we look at our budget, and we decide, okay, what components can we put in this new facility? We were able to do that with the Performing Arts Center, and the goal was to create a community facility. And I want to make clear to the viewers, too, the community college is never in a situation where we want to compete. We wanted to do something that wouldn't compete with the Sanger, and obviously we can't compete with the Coliseum. So we tried to find a niche right there in the middle. And so our theater sits about 1,200 individuals. In addition to our massive theater, we have a smaller breakout theater, which will hold about 200 people. But it's a living learning lab. We have all of our fine arts available in there. We have a recording studio. We have classrooms, of course, for our live entertainment program, which will launch this fall. We wanted to do something big for the Mississippi Gulf Coast. You know, we do workforce training, and the Mississippi Gulf Coast focuses so much on live entertainment with all the casinos and the churches that we have and all the venues along the coast who are desperate for technicians who know how to do lighting, sound, rigging, all those things associated with live entertainment. And so these students will learn that in a living lab, all the while inviting community in. We'll target Broadway shows. We're working with promoters for big concerts, big name entertainers to come in. So it'll generate a little bit of revenue to help us offset the cost. So that was the goal, to build a live training facility for future performers, number one, seasoned performers who want to come back and record their talent, but also to teach our students all those really technical skills associated with live entertainment.
What I like about it is that, as you know, I spent a lot of time in New York, and if you think about some of the finer theaters in New York where the seating configuration was unique and it had, certainly the balcony, but then I guess they're called, are they box seats?
Right.
Is that what those are called?
Box or balcony.
It reminded me of some of the finest, you could go see some of the best, orchestras in the world and be able to accommodate, heads of state at this place. I mean, just so well done. And so, I mean, it's inspiring just to see the building before the music even starts. Do you have that same feeling?
We do. I teared up when we had our first performance last week. Due to COVID, we had to have two separate performances of all of our fine arts groups. We had our dancers, our jazz band. We had all of our entertainment groups, our choirs all participated. It was amazing. But I'll tell you, I know you've been to Radio City Music Hall. We stood on the stage there and said, we want this same view. And I'm going to tell you, our architects made that happen. There's not a bad seat in the house. If you will notice the architecture, there's no internal beams that distort the view. It really turned out so much better than I even dreamed. So it was definitely a dream come true.
So you think about these new NFL stadiums and sort of the whole thinking behind the NFL stadiums are sort of like what you just mentioned, the Radio City Music Hall. It's having the seats seem closer to the stage, so you can, instead of having it flatter with people sitting, way away from the stage, you can be back in as far as the seat is concerned, but the further back you go, the higher you go, so that you had this sense that you're right near the stage. And you can tell you took advantage of that. That's what the new NFL stadiums are doing, to make people feel closer to the field. And it's just so extraordinarily well done. What a gem, and something that's really going to contribute to the college and the community for many, many years to come in ways we can't even fully appreciate right now.
I hope so. And just so you know that we have conference rooms in there, and as I mentioned, classrooms and alternate venues for performances and recording studio. Our hope is to name some of these for individuals who want to make donations to our institution. And so we could have the Ricky Mathews, stage, or whatever the case may be. So we're really looking to do that. We're putting together a really first-class brochure to offer those opportunities so people can have lifelong legacy type naming opportunities for this facility. I do think this facility will be around for quite a while.
It will, and it's at the Harrison County campus.
It is,
and I'm having to get that in my head. I think the name change was appropriate, and the Harrison County campus is the new name for that campus.
It is. It aligns with our new strategic plan. If you think about it, we have 10 locations. Every one of those locations, other than the Jefferson Davis campus at the time, was named after the location where it would sit or where it was located. So the Jefferson Davis campus was the only outlier. So we wanted to align that in our strategic plan.
So when you look at, beyond that for a second, and congratulations, by the way, on getting that incredible facility opened. When you got up this morning, I'm curious about the kind of things that were on your mind. Look, I tell you what, we're coming to the end of this segment. We'll pick up, because that's a long answer, I bet. We'll come on the other side. But this is Mary Graham. She's the president of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, a longtime friend of mine and of the show. And we'll answer her question when we come back about, what's on her mind when she got up this morning. I bet it's going to be an interesting list of stuff. We'll be back after this break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, casinoradio1063.com.
When you listen to SuperTalk Mississippi, you become part of a statewide community, a community of knowledgeable, engaged, enlightened, well-informed, hard-working men and women just like you, all eager to see the Magnolia State grow and prosper. There may be some disagreement on how to get there, but the goal remains the same, for each Mississippian to reach their American dream. Thanks for listening and being a part of the conversation on SuperTalk Mississippi. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Dr. Mary Graham, the president of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, with us, and she's a good friend. And one of the things we were chatting about during the break was someone asked me the other day, said, what is the biggest challenge of doing a daily show? And, my answer is actually having a clear voice because
Right.
you have to talk a lot and you have to be, I never really thought much about this when I was, doing my thing in my work life, but you have to have a clear throat. So the biggest challenge I have is a frog in my throat, and Mary had a little frog in her throat and we're still fighting now, but that goes with radio and people understand that and life goes on. But look, before we went to the break, I was about to ask you, when you got up this morning, what are the things that were most on your mind?
That's an interesting question, Ricky. The thing that runs through my mind every morning is how can we at Gulf Coast Community College get better? Our goal is to get better every day. We don't want to just compete locally. We want to compete with community college throughout the nation. We have so many accolades that we strive for. We're the #1 nursing school in Mississippi today. A new accolade we just found out about is #1 military-friendly community college, #1 in the United States, and there are 1,200 community colleges throughout the United States. So those are things that...
Well, stop there.
Okay.
Congratulations. Look, I talk about this all the time. I mean, one of the keys to our success in coastal Mississippi is the relationship we have with the military community. That could be through CB base, naval bases, the Keesler, Stennis, all the work that we do here, and the retirees. I mean, we're one of the most important retiree communities in the United States. But to win that distinction, #1 in the U.S., that's a really, really big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you. We are, we're competitive just by nature with all of our athletic events, but, we want to compete at everything. And I think competition is good for the soul. It makes you practice and work hard to be better. And that's what we do every day. So That's what I was thinking about this morning. How can we take it to the next level? We have a strategic plan. We're working on that every day to get better and, do things at Gulf Coast that really meet the needs of the community. And, we always want to focus. Of course, we want to be recognized nationally. We want to make sure we're taking care of our hometown folks and we're supporting our 4-county district. And if we're not doing that, we're not doing our job.
Well, you are doing it. And, what's interesting, I remember going back in the early days of the pandemic and you and your team, this is literally during the lockdown, you and your team were already trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to, as we sort of come out of the lockdown and start to understand how are we going to educate people in this new world. Of course, remote learning was a big part. You guys never missed a lick as it related to that.
Right.
But then you combined remoteness for people who had vulnerabilities or had vulnerable family members and whatever with in-class learning. And you didn't look back. You continued to move forward. You put the safety of the students and your staff number one, but you proved that you could operate a college in a scenario where a pandemic exists. And what's amazing to me is that what did that is leadership. Your leadership, the leadership of your team. I think about Glenn East and others here on Coast of Mississippi who did similar, challenges. We're in a place we had never been before with the pandemic, so we're having to do things we'd never done before.
Right.
And leadership's the thing that made the difference. And then I look across the United States and I see all these schools and colleges struggling with even doing it remotely. They with no plan to try to do in-face learning. As an educator that sort of figured it out, does it frustrate you that others couldn't figure it out?
It does, but we've been very fortunate. We're always looking at the long view of, what's the next advancement in technology that we need to adopt. And so we had a really good handle on virtual, if you will, or online learning. Most of our faculty were already in a hybrid. They had a hybrid opportunity to offer some online and some face-to-face. And so, I talked about this when we talked before. We live in Hurricane Alley, so at the drop of a hat, we've got to flip to, another type or another venue of learning. And so that kind of spurred us into investing in the technology that we needed. And so as the pandemic came on, our faculty, those few that had not really immersed themselves in online learning, really stepped up. We have such dedicated faculty, and they stepped up, and our whole student service team stepped up. And that was a new thing for student services to go virtual. And they stepped up and they did an amazing job. I think we called over 10,000 students through student services during the pandemic. We did care calls to say, are you okay? Do you have the technology you need? Are you connecting okay? You need to borrow a laptop. And so everyone really, it was a team effort. We had the technology, and I'll be honest with you, Ricky, we've taken it even now to the next level. We got a few dollars through CARES, through the federal grants program, and we were able to really enhance what we were already doing and put it in the hands of our faculty, and I'm telling you, they just took off with it. What has happened as a result of the pandemic has been transformational for our institution. We will never be the same institution we were before. We'll be so much better because our technology is so much better.
Well, we've talked about this before, you and I've talked about it with many other guests, that the trends that were in place before the pandemic were sped up by the pandemic. So the notion of remote learning and the use of technology and all of that, if you think about whether it's medicine or education or doing business, it's revolutionized the way we do everything around the world.
Really
and you're right. We'll find a new normal, but we'll never go back to where we were.
We won't, but I don't want people to forget that in-person learning is the most effective.
Yeah.
Particularly in a community college setting, because we do so many things in a hands-on environment. If you think about our career technical, think about nursing. We did go fully simulation and fully automated, but there's nothing like being in a hospital. There's nothing like learning to weld in person, sitting in an English comp class, you've had, Weta White is a great instructor for you, but those bonds that are created in the classroom are as effective and important as the learning that goes on. So I don't ever want us to totally remove from that. It's important. So what we call our style is hybrid style. We have the best of both worlds. We have great faculty who will sit and talk with you, but then we have this great technology that at the drop of a hat, we can be synchronous or asynchronous depending on the need.
This has been Mary Graham from Gulf Coast Community College, and it's really a story of resiliency. And the rest of America could have learned from our experience if they would have only listened and paid attention to what we were doing. So anyway, it's been great to talk to you. Yeah, for sure. Okay, have a great day. We'll see you later.
Subscribe for free to the Coast Vue podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you.